Chicago, Chicago, that toddling town, Chicago, Chicago, I'll show you around.
The corner was our magic, our music, our politics. Fires raised as tribal dances and war cries broke out on different corners. Power to the people.
And just say Shot City. And if you don't know by now, I'm talking about Shot Town. And just say Shot City, Shot City.
Welcome back to the Chicago Sunnyside podcast. I'm Kasabez, Maakmaah.
And I'm Nehez, Meniooh.
And our sister Jezreeta Debasa is not with us today because she is in sunny Africa, enjoying all of the sun and the beaches. And they sent us pictures of her on the beach.
Yeah,
while it's -0 degrees over here.
-0. It is terribly cold over here, and she is rubbing it in. But we are very happy that she got to make that trip.
Yeah, very happy for her. It's been a minute.
On our annual pilgrimage that KEPTA, or the Earth Center, holds every year. So we're super excited for her and look forward to the stories that she will return to Chicago with, and look forward to receiving her in the snow and ice.
Welcome back to the tundra.
You got to come back sometime so you can rub it in all you want right now.
This for you, sister. Yes, we know you're watching from afar, but soon you'll be near.
We have a great show for you today. Even though we're in the snow or in the cold, we are still discovering the sunny side of the city. And today we are still in our series on health-related topics. And now we are getting to the juiciest part of the meal that a lot of you guys have been waiting on, where we are talking about diet and the quality of our diet and how that affects our health. And how it is important for us in Chicago, because whether you know it or not, whether you are aware of it or not, even in your own life, the need to have access to quality food is a real problem, a real issue for many people in Chicago. The absence of quality food sources, the absence of places to get quality food, or even just the knowledge of how to find quality food and get quality food and prepare quality food. So it's an important episode today that I'm sure will be helpful in changing the way you live and eat day to day, and hopefully changing the way you even see your life in reference to or in relation to this earth that we live on.
I will be talking to my sister in the struggle, our sister in the struggle, Cicely.
Our sister, I don't know why
our sister, I claim her first, you know what I'm saying? I knew her first, you know.
Yes, you did. So you know her much better.
Yeah, there we go, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, our sister Cicely McClennon, and yeah, we'll get a chance to introduce her properly in a moment. But before we get to that, a few milestones we'd like to mention. We're now in double digits of episodes in the Chicago Sunnyside podcast. This is episode 12, and we're happy to be still here with you, and we're going to keep this thing going, y'all.
Definitely. We started it now, you won't be able to get rid of us now. Everywhere you turn, it's just going to get brighter and brighter if you're looking towards our way.
Bang! Sunnyside. Then yeah, we're still celebrating 25 years of the Earth Center in Chicago, which we're proud to have been a part of. And we're just going to be celebrating this all year and keep things going bigger and stronger here in Chicago. We have some big things lined up for later this year that we'll get to introduce to you shortly. But probably, should we tell them now?
Yes.
Okay, we have an award show coming up, the JED Awards at DuSable Museum. That will be on the 25th of May this year, 2024, at 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock p.m. So we're going to have tickets available shortly, and we're looking for sponsors. If you happen to be one of the people who would like to sponsor such an event and get ad space and all the good things, frills that come with sponsoring great events like this, then contact us.
Definitely. And we'll be talking about that much more in the coming episodes. I wasn't even sure that's what you were going to mention. I thought you were going to mention the women's workshop health series that we're doing right now.
Oh, yes.
Our first one will have happened by the time this airs, but we have 2 more coming in February and in March. February 10th and March, I do not remember, but we will put it in the description.
Read the description, y'all. There's so much information in there.
Especially in this episode, trying to make sure we can provide you with links to follow up on all of the information that we'll be talking about.
What else? We just got done fasting, so the fast was illuminating as always and enlightening, if not just enlightening my belt straps.
Lightening up your
enlightening like
your load.
Like Sunnyside, like the sun.
It was great. It was a great fast, but hopefully now we are a little bit more energetic on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have a little bit of caffeine assistance rather than
you have all the caffeine.
Rather than being at the end of a fast and then having to speak with you all. But we're dedicated, we're committed to this, so even through that, we did it. You won't be able to get rid of us.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a period of renewal, and we're looking forward to bringing you new energies, new vibrations, and we're going to have many new great episodes to come. Stay tuned. What's in the news today? Cat Williams been talking a lot.
Cat Williams has been in the news almost too much. If you go on YouTube, you go on social media, you go anywhere near the internet where they can bring you distracting information about what celebrities are doing, and those they pay way too much to keep us distracted and thinking about issues that don't really have anything to do with us. He's all over that.
Yes, and we thank him.
He's hilarious. He's hilarious.
Yeah.
He brings us some laughter.
Absolutely. I didn't want to say much about all that he said, except to say that he was saying 2024 is going to be the year that truth comes to the light and the liars get exposed. And we're all for that over here at the Sunnyside Podcast.
All for that over here. For a long time, we've been quoting the founder of the Earth Center that said, if the truth makes you uncomfortable, that means you're a liar.
If the truth scares me, that means I'm a liar.
So we are out here with this podcast, really committed, looking forward to scaring all of the liars throughout Chicago, because we're trying to bring the truth of what real people are doing to improve Chicago and to better the perspective we take to life and better the perspective we take to our problems.
Because P. Diddy be wanting to party and you got to tell him no.
Oh, shout out to Cat though. There were many one-liners. Anybody who respects media loved that interview. He did a great job, and it shows in the numbers that Shannon Sharpe is benefiting from.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of the truth, we want to show you guys a little something from Byron Allen's Griot Awards show.
Yes, there was another happening or current event not too long ago now. I think it actually happened just before the change of the new year. Colonial New Year, Gregorian New Year, not our New Year.
Fake New Year. Yeah.
But there was a big award ceremony held by Byron Allen, who started a all-black media company called Griot. You may have also seen or heard about that on social media or in the media somewhere. And we want to show you a clip from that because it was an interesting award show. And we had just talked about our award show coming. And this is a big award show that happened in Black Hollywood. Let's take a look.
Thank you. And congratulations to all of our amazing honorees. You have definitely made our lives so much better, and we appreciate you from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s widow, the true queen of America, Coretta Scott King, once said to me, "Byron, our greatest weapon is the truth. If we bring the truth, we will always win." So tonight, let's talk about the truth. The truth is, Black America is under attack. At this time, 44 states are debating which Black history to teach in schools. There's only one Black history that should be taught, the truth. Over 20 states have already put laws on the books to stop teachers from teaching the truth. They are downplaying our contributions to this beautiful country and changing our narrative and diminishing our images. Unfortunately, we have seen this before. You erase the truth so you can repeat the atrocities again. That's why I've dedicated my life to building one of the world's biggest media companies, simply because we must tell our own stories, keep control of the narrative and our images. Representation matters. When we see positive images of ourselves, it lifts our spirits. You cannot be what you cannot see. So tonight, let's bring the truth. Here's one. Slavery did not benefit black people. It's one of the worst crimes committed against humanity. Here's another truth. Unfortunately, too many Americans are struggling to succeed. Black Americans, Hispanic Americans, Asian Americans, gay Americans, Jewish Americans, Muslim Americans, single mothers, and white Americans. We're all positioned to succeed when everyone can benefit from the riches of America. And when we do that, we are one and we can compete in this global society. So here is the truth. America, you are killing Black America in the classroom by making sure we do not get a proper education. You're killing us in the courtroom by making sure we do not have equal justice. You're killing us in the boardroom by making sure that we do not get real economic inclusion. And you're killing us in the hospital room by making sure that we do not have proper health care. And you're doing all of this long before you kill us in the streets. More truth. If we do not close the education gap, we cannot close the wealth gap. I can tell you where Black America will be 40 years from now with one simple data point. What is the Black student population of the top 50 universities white corporate America recruits from? If it remains under 1 or 2%, as opposed to where it should be, proportionate with the Black population, approximately 14%, then nothing will change in Black America. And America will never realize its fullest potential. When you come to my office and you get off the elevator, there's a sign that says, there isn't a bank in the world where I can deposit excuses, so I don't accept them. America, we can no longer accept your excuses.
So what do y'all think, listeners, ladies and gentlemen? Nehez.
I really wanted to bring this to our listeners' attention because he starts off making such a good point, making such a strong point. He's chiming in, even in front of Kat, because like I said, this happened before the year turned, saying that the truth is what's important. And he's quoting that from Miss Coretta Scott King. Mm-hmm. But in starting that out, in starting off his point, he's saying that slavery was not a benefit. There was no benefit in slavery. There's not anything that those who were enslaved gained from that enslavement. And that's big. I've even shown this clip or shared this clip with some people who are like, why did he even say that? Who thinks that there was? Who would even imagine that there was?
But somehow we end up functioning like it every time. We end up functioning, hey, now that we're here, this is the only place for us. This is our home. We don't want anything to do with Africa. and then everything we build our lives around has to do with the culture that what our ancestors were captured and forced into.
Not only that, some people actually, with their own mouths, admit, they say that's their perspective. At least I got whatever modern religion. At least I got whatever modern religion I got. At least I got whatever access to wealth I got. At least I'm living better over here than those who are starving in Africa, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There are those people who are just ignorant, and we'll just call that ignorance. We won't say much to that.
I will say that's at least more honest, because you have more people who will say slavery was horrible, which we all know that it was, but at the same time, actions, attitudes, way of functioning, way of seeing the world is all proving our identity is still the same thing the slave master gave us.
But then there are those who don't understand that the identity they have is a consequence of that enslavement, who will make a point like this, and this no disrespect to Byron Allen. I think what Byron Allen is trying to do by starting his own media company is in the right direction and all of that. But right after that, he goes into then pleading with white America of what they need to give us in Black America, which then you're not proving your point. If nothing good came out of slavery, then what do you need the descendants of your slave owners to do for you now? Just return to what you had before enslavement happened. And then you can wipe away all of the mess, all of the problems. That was really just the contradiction in a minute's time was what really was glaring to me. But you had a whole room full of celebrities, a whole room full of people clapping and cheering that on, which was so, I don't know the word to even put, but it was disheartening, disappointing, because again, you see a lot of people who are gaining a lot of material wealth, but not having a perspective to be able to do anything with that material wealth. Because the reality is that if that was genuine, if you even understood what you were saying by saying we didn't gain anything from slavery, then the next thing you'll be talking about with all of that wealth in the room is how can we now reinvest it in where we come from? How can we now reinvest it in what we were doing before that tragedy of humanity happened, to get back to the good that was happening before that tragedy came and changed things? Nothing is mentioned about how we can invest in our motherland. Everything was talking about how we can now be let in and how we have to be let in by others. The same system that enslaved us now needs to let us into the success from this system that's benefited off of slavery, that's built off of slavery. That contradiction was just so difficult to watch.
Yeah, he even said, I don't accept any excuses. White America, stop making excuses. But what about us? What about the excuses we're making for why whatever white America is doing is the cause of my problems, is the reason why I can't get on my feet, is the reason why I can't be successful, is the reason why I can't whatever. And white America not allowing us, not teaching us Black history. Come on, you gonna really expect the one who came from the captors of your ancestors? I don't even like saying slave owners. I'm thinking I think captive is just a good word. Because if you look at your ancestors as captives, and then you look at yourself as a descendant of a captive in the same land that your ancestors were captured and brought to, then that means you just haven't succeeded in escaping. So those who came from your captors, the ones who captured your ancestors, their descendants don't have an interest in your benefit.
They don't have to make excuses for why they're not doing anything but keeping you captive. That's what their intention was.
They don't have to make excuses for doing exactly what they plan to do. The system isn't failing, the system is succeeding. It's doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing.
Are you? Is the question.
On you. The system is doing what it's supposed to be doing on you. And whatever you think that should be taught in school about your history, that's what you should be teaching your children. Whatever you think you're supposed to be getting for healthcare, that's what you're supposed to be providing or learning how to provide or seeking people to provide it, because whatever the hospitals are bringing, I don't think it's good for any demographic of people out here.
Exactly. Check the statistics. But the thing is that even to help everyone understand it, even to help our listeners understand it, we even have to take it out of the conversation about race, just to get a different perspective on it. Of course, it has to do with race. This whole system has to do with race. It made up this, it made up this construct, but it fully bases everything on this construct. We get all of that. But think about the fact that if you live in a household and someone kidnaps you from that household, and now you are saying, hey, kidnappers, don't give me excuses on why you can't teach me good about my house, about the history of my house, and the ancestors who lived in my house before I became alive. Why would they be good at doing that? Why would they be good at teaching you about your history? You have to go back to that house and then find out about that history, and then you're the one to teach it to the world. If you think America's not teaching Black history, Black civilization well, that's because the teacher's not teaching yet. You're still there trying to be a student of someone that's not the teacher for that class. You see what I'm saying? It's so simple. If it wasn't in racial terms, and you didn't feel like you were owed something, that's just simple. I can't ask Kasabez to teach me about my ancestors. I can't ask him to teach my children about my ancestors and get mad that he can't do it like I want to see it, because that's my responsibility. That's my task. And even if I don't know it enough, I don't know it well, or even if I don't think I have the resources to do it, it's all my responsibility to go find out, to go gain those resources, to be able to teach my children. And then even if Kasabez's children can gain from knowing about the history of my family, then I'll be the one to teach them properly. And he will know, hey, you want to learn about Nehez's ancestors? Go find out from Nehez. He can teach it better than me. That's just like simple logic, but we're stuck in this mode of, hey, teach me about me. You're not doing it good enough.
So stuck. I don't really know. I don't really understand how we end up getting just comfortable in a
position of
subservience, a position of dependence, basically. A position of
dependence.
Yeah, where someone has to provide everything that we need and we think we're entitled to it. I just was thinking about how not only do we no longer want to grow food, or like our ancestors was slaves and we don't want to grow food because they used to have to pick cotton, whatever, they used to have to farm. We don't want to do that. Now we don't want to prepare food, we don't want to cook it, we don't even want to pay for it. We want to pay for everything with a link card and then not put in any effort to have our basic needs taken care of. We want free healthcare, free education, business loans, not business loans, grants.
Yes.
For everything. So then where's the effort Where's the effort?
Definitely. A wise man once said, you can't even talk about racism if now you're the one still dependent on the one that enslaved you or the one that captured you. There's no point to talk about it. Sure, it's not even a discussion or argument that systems are set up to be racist, and understanding that racism is an institutional thing, sure. But if you still are the ones dependent on that, instead of being like, hey, just like every other people in the world, I have to set an infrastructure for myself that I can depend on, that I can be sure is not going to take advantage of me, then you can't depend on somebody else and complain about racism. That's hard for us to hear the way we educate it over here, but it's just the truth, and this is the year for that.
The same wise man said that if a lion is chasing you, you can't get tired if that lion didn't stop chasing you. We still being chased by the lion. You think a lion is going to stop being a lion and suddenly grow a conscience and talk about, oh, we want justice for you? That's only a trap to make you stop running so it can eat you.
Not to get too figurative, but that's not to call white America a lion. That's to call evil a lion. And the spirit of evil is chasing humanity.
That might be too deep for the people, brother.
It might be. Let's get to the episode because I really wanted to show that clip too, because the sister we'll be bringing on is just a very grassroots activist who has that understanding. If this system has provided us with problems, the fact that we were captives have provided us with problems, let's get back to what has always served us. The earth has served us. Our motherland served us. It's what birthed us. This sister who, Kasabez, her brother, can do much better to introduce her, but she's a repatriate. She's investing in earth. She's investing in Africa, and that's really inspiring. That was really inspiring for me in hearing and learning more about what she's doing, and I look forward to speaking to her and listening to what she has to say.
But don't we have a proverb, bro?
Oh, you're right.
I know we went hard on proverb.
That's what I'm saying. I have to calm myself down because the hypocrisy, I could have talked about that for the whole episode, but
I know
that's taking away time from our sister. The proverb of today's episode is, what you plant is what you'll harvest.
You reap what you sow, in other words. I think we've heard
If
that.
you plant corn, you can't expect to harvest beans. Simple.
Message. Yeah, whatever you put in is what you get out.
Whatever you invest, and wherever you are investing, that's where you're going to get something out from, and that's what you will get out.
And if you eat spoiled food, you're going to get gas and stomachache.
Or if you eat denatured foods, you're going to become denatured. You're going to lose harmony and connection with nature.
Yes, because whatever you're planting in your own body is still the same
energy you'll harvest.
Exactly. That's what we need to survive every time, and then we'll be expressing the quality of that.
So today we hope to plant some seeds of understanding in the ears of our listeners with the help of our sister, Cicely McClennon, about the importance of quality foods, of understanding the wealth and the value of earth itself and the soil. And I want to really get into that interview.
All right. We'll be right back with our sister, Cicely McClennon. Welcome, Cicely, to the Chicago Sunnyside podcast.
Yes,
Thank you guys for having me.
Our pleasure.
It's my G right here. We go way back.
Yep.
Like a third wheel on this one.
I'm sure you will stay in the background. It's cool. We got this. But yeah, I'm honored that you decided to come and grace us with your presence and expertise and knowledge.
I'm so happy you guys invited me. I really am. I just, like we talked about before, we do go a long way back. And I've been a supporter of the work that you guys have been doing here for a long time, and I'm just glad to be in the number of people out here active and taking responsibility.
Doing the work.
Yeah.
And you were talking about your Wikipedia page.
Oh yeah.
We need to make our Cicely McClennon Wikipedia page, so I'm gonna add to it real quick the bullet points. Filmmaker, repatriate.
Yes.
In Ghana, in particular. Winemaker?
Yes.
What do they call it? Winemaker?
Winemaker is good.
Community activist. Food. What is it? Food sovereignty activist?
Yeah, advocate or
advocate,
like that.
Yes. Okay. And educator. Mother. And dynamo. But you know, am I missing anything?
Yes, that's the main points.
Okay.
Those are the big ones right there. Yeah.
All right, cool. Historian, I dare say.
A little bit, yep.
We're continuing our series talking about health, and we wanted to bring you in because we know your work with the food sovereignty is recently being involved, promoting legislation for food accessibility and also assistance for Black farmers. And in addition, just being knowledgeable in general about diet, herbs, and the things that we need to be healthy and well. Wanted to bring you on to share some of your knowledge.
That's cool. I love talking about food. That's my favorite subject. Food and drinks.
I'm excited about that because it's not a shot on any Chicago person, but when you think of big city, you don't think of natural growing food, making wine, and all of it, being into herbs. How really did you get into that?
Man, you went deep with that one, didn't you?
Hold on. First of all, I met this sister in 2005, right? She was the first person I ever met who had like the weekly produce delivery. She had a box of fresh produce that she had got. And I was like, funny. Wow, that's the thing. I didn't know about it.
The community sustainable agriculture. I'm still super into that. But this is how it started. When I was a little girl, my grandmother had made some wine. The grapes had came from my aunt's garden. Okay. And everybody was so excited in the house. Everybody was bubbling. Did you taste the wine? Did you taste the wine? And I felt a little shy because I was little and I didn't really want to taste the wine, but I was excited about how excited everybody else was. And I decided in that moment that when I get old enough, I too will learn how to make wine. So to me, that's really when everything started. And I just started doing little experiments, trying to collect seeds and plant stuff right in Englewood, just all around the house and stuff. Then I graduated to being the caretaker for my mother's plants, which I thought they were my mother's plants. I didn't realize they were mine until I went away to college, and then my mom just let them die. So and they were all just very beautiful. We had a house full of beautiful plants. It didn't occur to me even at that moment that I was like into that.
It's just what you did.
As I started having children. When you were going through that, you find yourself alone. Or maybe like your lifestyle changes. Because to me, that's what happened with me. My lifestyle did not accommodate the things that I was doing at first. So I decided to learn some new stuff and do some new stuff. Before my oldest daughter was born, I planted my first garden. That was in the 90s. And I'll never forget my other grandmother asked my mom, where did she learn that country? And I was like, man, it was a hostility. But at the time, I didn't realize that because of our history in the country, that we had this thing about planting and growing and plants. Okay, everything's gonna come full circle if you live long enough.
That's right.
So at that time, I didn't let it bother me. I grew beautiful gardens, pre-social media growing, you know, to the extent where
people try to show them off.
Right. I just like, you would have to talk to an eyewitness, because at one point, me and my daughter did seeds in our living room. We turned our whole living room into a seed thing, and we planted hundreds of plants. And then we came out into the yard and planted those. So it just kept building and building. And then just like with the drinks, once you taste properly prepared drinks, once you taste food that has had care, I'll never forget, not my first garden, but maybe my second garden, Miss Alicia Banks was making compost and humus in her yard for her garden. She brought me some. You can't unsee it. It was over after that. It was like, oh my God, I need good food. Like, I'm not doing none of that other stuff. When I first ate a tomato and I called my dad, I was like, what have we been eating? That's how tomatoes supposed to taste. I'm like, oh my God. So pretty much I have a lot of wild stories about my experience gardening in Englewood, down in Champaign County, different places where I've lived or whatever. But that's basically how it started.
You got the taste and didn't look back.
I got deeper and just just kept going.
But before we dive into that deeper and deeper, that's really why I asked, because that perspective comes from your other grandma. Like, where'd she get this from? What you doing? In the big city, that's the perspectives we get, especially from some of our elders. That grandma, the other grandma who was making the wine, where is she from? Chicago too?
Interestingly enough, both of these, my paternal and maternal grandparents, all came from Mississippi.
From the South. That's what I was.
And their path led them to Missouri, and then in Chicago, both of them knew each other from Missouri.
Wow. Oh wow!
Just can't make this up. When my parents met each other at CVS in the late '60s, their mothers already knew each other, and they just had two different perspectives. My father's mother was the one who nursed all her children. My mother's mother was the one who nursed none of them. She was like full-fledged with the big city living type of thing. She worked outside of the house. My father's mother didn't work outside of the house until her youngest son was like a big boy. They just had two different perspectives.
Yeah.
And it was hilarious.
Which is what makes a family rich.
Yeah, I love all of it.
Yeah, it's such an interesting perspective in our communities, to this attitude of not wanting to be involved with planting and growing food because of it's maybe PTSD from the slavery experience.
Definitely.
and now it's, hey, we moved up here so we didn't have to do that anymore.
That's what they say.
We don't have to pick cotton anymore. We don't have to do whatever. And then it's, you surrender your
freedom, autonomy.
Yeah, you surrender the
access.
food.
You surrender your access to decent food because you gave the responsibility to somebody else who clearly doesn't have your interests in mind at all.
Exactly.
Their profit is what's in mind. And that's really why I was excited with you coming on the show, because even in our introduction to starting the podcast, we talked about how we wanted to tackle the topics that we really...
I'd like to be part of the solution.
And you have been, right?
Having grown up in Englewood, because you talk about Englewood is famous for having been this food desert. At least Englewood's kind of big, right? You can't say it's homogenous. But were you in one of those areas where it was hard to access fresh food?
Yeah, food has been a problem. Accessing food in Englewood has been a problem ever since I can remember. No one noticed it though. Yeah, I didn't feel like I noticed it. What I did notice is that my mom would get in the car and drive to Bumble, who knows where, to get food. I noticed that my grandmothers, both of them, made careful preparation. Like, they had to have a plan for food. Like, I have to go here for this, I have to go there for this, I have to go there for this, and then I have to go there for this. Literally at least 4 shops, and none of them in our area. So I grew up seeing that, but it didn't register to me. It didn't register to me that we were in a real bad situation until quite a few years later. I was an adult by the time I realized, Houston, we have a problem. Yeah, Englewood, look, hey, it's just the same story of what they call white flight that you hear about in all these other places throughout the United States. And so once that occurred, a lot of the variety of businesses, the number of businesses, and all of that, it just fell at the bottom, fell out of all of that. So it's been that way at least since the 70s. But the decline started in the 60s, really after the building of the Dan Ryan Expressway. That's how Africans in this country ended up in Englewood, because they weren't in that area at first. They ended up there after they were concentrated in the middle, maybe some parts of the west side, Bronzeville area. And then when they came and built the expressway, they displaced all of those people, and that is what moved us into Englewood. And it's been on the decline ever since. You got to think, back in the early part of the 1900s, Englewood was one of the largest capital centers in the world. Englewood alone, not just Chicago, Englewood is a huge community. And Anybody pretty much over 70 will tell you that if you needed to get something, you could get it from Englewood. And if you wanted to be something nice, you would get it from there too. All of that just declined, and I was born at the end of that, when it was just like ghost town. And even now, we have little to no access to food in Englewood.
And do you know why? That's interesting. Now I see why you call her a historian. And do you know why Englewood became the reservation for blacks being moved out of where they were building the highway? Because that happens in many cities. Anytime blacks get built. I don't think any accommodation was made for us when, at that moment, I don't think the city planning accounted for where we would go. It was like a happenstance, the way it seems to have rolled out. But once it started occurring, it's all thought just left out the window. They didn't think about how can we make this sustainable, how can we build on it, none of that. They just started jetting. Capital just started running out of Englewood. And then as soon as they did that, it was like, oh my goodness, we didn't mean to relinquish the spot. Now they're coming back. Oh, really? No. Yes. So now we have the re-gentrification situation going on. So Englewood is no longer what I would remember growing up, like in the 70s and the 80s. It's completely different. Everyone lives in Englewood now, literally. Wow. When you observed in adulthood that, wow, this really a food desert, we don't have access to food, what were some of the first initiatives or steps you wanted to take in changing it? Was just growing seeds in your own living room, did that happen first? When I first started growing, I didn't think about food deserts. I just thought about good food. Just like I was thinking about the taste of the tomatoes. Yeah, I wanted to have access to good food. Just like when I started making wine, I knew I had that history in the family, and I was like, man, if you really want some good wine, I think you should start learning your science. So it was led literally by quality. Just wanting something quality. And then I started study with Dr. Llaila Afrika, and may he rest in peace. Yes. And in the course of that, Doc would be, if you had a workshop with him, but at some point he just looks at you like, you guys just don't get it. There was so many of those looks throughout my training. And then I just started thinking deeper about it. Man, what are we doing? Like, even if we eat the proper food, it's not proper. So that was his look. He's looking at us like, you guys don't really get it. You don't get how deep this situation is. And so that kind of, it drug me deeper. Even, even before that, I was with Llaila Upton. She's an artist, and she had started doing Nature Sunshine vitamins. You guys know that company? And she was talking to me, and I think she saw my interest. She said, they're going to be doing a workshop. Why don't you come to it? It's no charge. It's out in the Cicero area, and I think you'll learn a lot. And that was something. Because they started, it was a day-long workshop. They gave us literature. I read everything. And I listened intently. And that was a workshop on herbs and herbal supplements. And because at that time people were saying, no, you shouldn't have to take supplements. And Dr. Afrika had told us, you do. In fact, if you take a multivitamin, you should take 2. That's what he told us. When I went to the Nature Sunshine class, they started challenging a lot of the ideas that I had about the food. And am I really getting what I'm supposed to be getting from this food? And so that's when I've been in that rabbit hole ever since. And just to roll back just a second, when you were saying that Dr. Afrika would look at you guys like you really don't get it, what was it that you were talking about, and what did you later come to find out? Oh, that's how deep he was saying it really goes. So many things, man. Because Dr. Afrika, I bring that up because he was very instrumental in my own becoming. When I found his book, because I grew up on the West Coast, so I found his book and I was like, really? Yeah, me too. That was one of my first readings, the African Holistic Health. Yeah, that's really like the Bible. But so many things. One point was the sugar. So that was hilarious.
I would be in class laughing like no tomorrow. Kasabez, no, I would laugh. If it's funny, I'm laughing. No one else would be laughing, but I found it particularly hilarious. So the sugar conversation, this is basically the way it went. I don't know what the man said to start it off. He might have said something like, everyone's worried about meat. You should be concerned about those white flour and white sugar products first and foremost. You should be concerned enough to stop eating them, okay? So then somebody raised their hand and said, what can we substitute for the sugar? Which led us to this whole discussion. People throwing out all kinds of stuff from stevia to agave to this to that. And then the final straw was when somebody said raw honey. And Dr. Afrika raised his voice and said, and I quote, the only way you're going to get raw honey is if you suck it out a bee's ass. You guys are too focused on sweet. We don't need to talk about substitute. Just stop. That is a primary example of how that. So it was constantly these points that we would bring up where he would just be like,
Oh, I understand now.
you know, and my favorite was one time somebody asked something and he bent down. How you little kids, when you do the little kids, you get down on their level, but we're all adults. But he bent down and he goes, "You've asked the question, but can you understand the answer?" And I'm in my seat like, God, please don't let me laugh out loud. Yeah, so that's basically when it got to be a real intense situation for me. I really was like, not only are we not accessing good food, we in trouble.
We don't even know how to eat.
And we don't even know how to fix it. I remember my assessments that I did. My late husband, Niambi, may they all rest in peace. I did assessments of people who are no longer here for my certification with Dr. Afrika. And I'll never forget my good friend who's literally incapacitated right now from stroke. And these are people, Kasabez knows, these are the in shape, beautiful dancers, blah, blah, blah. She looked at my assessments, just flipping through them, because she's in the class with me. I happened to have went to high school with her, and then we met again in the class. She says, on paper, everybody looks like they're 80 or 90 years old. And so it was, at that point, it was my personal goal to understand how to read and assess people the way that she did at that time, because I was doing the assessments. I could fill in the blanks. I could look at your eyes. I could do this. I could do that. But she read it. So basically, what she was pointing to was our metabolic capacity. You should look a certain way. Your numbers should look a certain way at a certain age. And they were all off. Even the people that looked great, that felt great, the numbers were off. So that began a whole process. I lost some people in the process. So we literally been at the drawing board like, okay, let's try this. Let's try that. Let's try that. Some has worked, some have not. So I'm still here literally making an attempt. The kids were like, all the healthy people we know have died. I said, we're not going to Dorito and hot flaming ourselves into the grave though. We're going to do the best we can. And so that's literally what my work is about. Just doing the best I can to model that for my children so that they won't just completely cash it in on cheeseburgers, hot flamings, and blue juice. You know what I mean? Like, we're not doing that.
I went to a workshop of Dr. Afrika's, and that same quote about the honey, he said that there too. I was like, oh, that was the one thing I remember from that whole talk.
Oh my goodness. I remember a lot more than God. But it's just, we are so focused, which is wow, because that's what brought me to bitters. The bitter herbs and the bitter drinks. It just...
Because he was like, stop with the sweet.
It's so, you start thinking to yourself, if not sweet, then what? And then you realize there's something else. Bitters.
Even on the other side of the spectrum, to balance out all the sweet we got dumped in our body growing up. Yeah, it's true. No, it's really a big issue, and it shows that elder's wisdom, because when we have those kind of revelations and we see how people are eating unhealthy, people are having unhealthy lifestyles, that part of us that's attached to it just wants, okay, but give us a new way of how to live the same way and
Like
how to enjoy the same.
vegetarians who want to, or vegans who want to substitute every meat product,
Right.
animal, fake meats, soy-based, wheat-based, highly processed, and sometimes that stuff is packed full of sugar.
It's even
salt.
worse.
It's
Yeah.
worse. It's even worse. Just eat meat if you're gonna do it. It's even worse. But what's amazing? What's the thing about that is for someone like him who knows there's a whole world of possibilities out there once you unhook you from that.
The diet has been perfected for thousands of years. Like they know what to eat and why they eating it. They know what ingredients they use and why, not just for taste, but for the fact that it has these health properties. Things like moringa, sumbala, or I'm not sure if they have that in Ghana.
Locust
sumbala.
pod.
But yeah, it's different. It's different ingredients they use, and it's a spice, but they know what it does in the body when they eat it. It's not just, oh, because I like spicy, or oh, I just like whatever this flavor.
It's a very deep knowledge. The food, the cuisine, and that's one of the things that challenges us as being born and raised here, as opposed to when you live on the continent, is because we've had access to pretty much everything. We could go a week and we eat Italian, Thai, Korean, all in 1 week. But that's not the way bodies are set up. Cuisine goes with the environment, with the people that are in that particular environment.
Exactly.
And
We consider that to be like boring if you have to eat the same thing every day.
it shouldn't be the same, but you should know what you're doing. And these people, they know what they're doing. That's why if you notice, if you hang out with your continental friends, if they haven't eaten their food, they have not eaten. They'll tell you that, and you really will. It can even be broadcast in the news report. They'll say they're starving. Technically, they're not starving. What they mean is they have not eaten their food that they know. And so it's like a whole different way of looking at it. And it's weird and it's challenging for us to adjust, because to me that was one of the hardest parts of my repatriation. I was like, the food. Man, we're Chicago. We can access anything and it's good on top of that. So
yeah, we're known for that.
Yeah, and then you get to Ghana and it's, I cannot eat soup another day. If I get another bowl of soup, I'm gonna lose it. Like literally, it was like that scene with Shelby on that movie when they told him he should take a day off and he started hallucinating and then he was hiding under his desk, and then finally he just got his suit on and his briefcase like, I'm going to work, that's it. That's how I felt about the food when I was in Ghana. I was just like, oh my God, I need some tacos. I cannot do this. But I got through it.
No, that's the thing. Like most of the people who even come through our organization and they're very charged up on, I'm getting back to my culture and all that. That's the big hurdle. Everybody got
food.
The food. And even since I moved over there, even my family coming to visit, they can't do more than a week without, okay, I need food. I gotta eat it. And you see how attached we are to some of these flavors that are over here killing us. That's sweet, and even the diversity. But when you go over there and you really spend time with the people and spend time with families, you even see how healing, like that's what I was saying when he gave you bullet points, summarize your Wikipedia, you could almost end with mom instead of dynamo, because a mother in real living becomes the healer. And when you're over there and you see some of the grandmas over there, grandma's watching, and okay, I see this one is having low blood anemia issues, I see this one is having fatigue issues, and then that's the sauce they make that night because of that, and that's the leaves they use in the sauce because of that. And it's
I have seen my brother-in-law describe his wife. She's more than a doctor. Man, come on, man. Which wife don't want to be described by their husband? More than a doctor. You know what I mean? And with all my training in Ghana, if I have a problem that I can't figure out, I call her. And she knows what to do. And I love it. And I know that is the power position.
Exactly.
It is a position of honor. And that's one thing that I do enjoy about many of the Ghanaian groups. They really do. They really do honor the grandmother.
Yeah.
And the mother in a special kind of way.
And I mean, that also goes to show that depth that Dr. Afrika was talking about, because the first step is even getting food that's not from the gas station. The second step, is now learning that, okay, there are foods that are healthier for you at that natural food grocery store in your garden that you can grow. And then there's all of these subtleties, like the art of cooking and putting medicine in the food and all of that. And our traditions have that. Even our traditions in the South had a lot of that. And then when you can go deeper into the culture and even see where we were before the South, then it's, man, this is a whole world. And I was busy at the gas station, playing with my life.
Flaming Hots and Blue
Juice. When I first started seeing the kids walking to school with that, I thought, this ain't gonna end well.
Hot country curls with the nacho cheese.
It became a thing in class, Kasabez, and I asked my students, what did you eat last night?
Because they acting out.
Just what have you been eating? But literally just take account. But another thing too was we started including food in all our programming as much as we could, because we thought, okay, we got to give people, if they know what good food is, they will like it and they will look for it. That's my thinking. So in all of the programming that we've done, we've always tried to include some kind of real food.
That's true. Nobody takes quality and then go back and chooses lack of quality.
To me, it's hard to go back.
I feel like some people do though.
Well, so there's addictive properties in the food. So my kids have been out of the country for 3, 4, 5 years, and literally on the way from the airport, they're in the gas station trying to get some Doritos. And then they got the camera on, and I'm like, wow. And I'm like, let's pause this picture, and I just want you to understand how addictive these substances are. Something you haven't eaten in years. Why is Doritos the first thing you think about when you get to Chicago? Why are you filming yourself having this Dorito moment? Let's talk about it, because now mom is not crazy. I'm showing you, look at yourself. Look how you are behaving. When we were in Ghana, they had Doritos, but they were made to the EU standard. And let's say this is your Doritos here. This is the list of ingredients. It's literally this long. And this is the EU Doritos. And quite frankly, you can tell the difference. Like I told the kids, look at the difference. When you eat your Doritos in Ghana, you're done with them. You throw the bag away. Here, you're like this.
Licking the inside of the package.
You lick your fingers. You lick the bag. You know what I'm saying? Like, at some point, you got to see yourself that this is what I'm doing. This is wild. But even in all those years, they still look for it. So this is something that it can't be solved on an individual basis. This is a community effort that needs to take place. So we own it.
So I think we should get to the education piece, but first I wanted to come back to something we had mentioned before about the food desert situation, and specifically talking about Englewood. I know that you're doing work with some organizations there. You've done some work with the state rep there towards getting more funding, support, personnel, interest, and so on into growing food locally. Could you talk more about that work?
Oh, yeah. Basically, when I came in town last year, Baba Will Crosby called me one day, as he has the elders, they got a word and they know when to call you. And he literally was like, are you going to the Black Farmers Lobby in Springfield? And I was like, no, because I don't know anything about it. It's coming up. Here's the number. Call and see what you can find out. I called, and State Rep Sonia Harper had a sister named Katrina working in her office. And man, if I had a budget, Katrina would be on my team, bro. Katrina laid out everything, what we needed to do, how to get us started. And then was like, look, if you have time, we have a group call. State Rep will be on the line along with the organizers, and then you could get up to speed. I called Chris, my junior partner Chris, and we hopped on the call. We heard everything they was doing. We were not prepared, but me and Chris decided we need to go down here. All our people gonna be there. all the farmers we know, all the market people we've been working with, people we've been calling, who act like they couldn't turn our call, they gonna be there. And then we gonna see them. And then we could talk about what we wanted to talk about in the first place. So we literally got up 2 days later, met a bus, went down to Springfield. It was amazing. The experience was amazing. And Kasabez knows, coming from me, I am not a person that puts any stock into electoral politics. I just do not. Never have, here or there or anywhere. But
Never heard her talk about it.
so I get down there, farmers down there, 10-gallon hats and cowboy boots. You had the whole spectrum. It was amazing. It was so amazing that instead of lobbying and running around looking for politicians to try to talk into supporting the initiatives that were out, they came looking for us.
Yeah.
And that is what surprised me. That surprised me. And it was not fake. It was a genuine outpouring. Where I realized in that day that we don't really understand the challenge that we're facing. That's part of the reason we're not getting the legislative support that we need. One of the legislators was saying that her daughter quit her job to become a farmer. That is what exposed her personally to the challenges in this area. Before that, was she supporting anything that we have been trying to do? I learned in that, Cicely, possibly you could spend some time really digging into the issues around food and helping people to understand them. It went from a almost contentious, cynical, just totally just these people are not serious.
Pessimistic.
Yeah, I went a little too far in the other direction. I had to come back towards the middle, but because I ended up working in the state rep's office for about 6 months, and that's not really my lane. I did what I could when I was there, but I was particularly interested in her work because she's the Illinois House Ag Chair.
Okay.
Which is a very powerful position, a position unknown to black folks in Illinois. And so I thought, you know what, I need to understand more about the work that she's doing, the legislation that she's pushing, and just, so I got in there and I got my hands dirty with that. And I learned a lot.
And it's not really our thrust in the program, but just since we're talking about it, could you talk about a few of the key things that she's gotten done? Okay,
particularly her work is not just around food. That's something very important. She's from Englewood too. Okay. And the same challenges that I've had, a lot of us from Englewood, our families have experienced what they call cancer clusters, and hers as well as mine. And that's been a big motivating factor for her. And she's headed up some of the major food advocacy groups in Englewood. Growing Home, Grow Greater Englewood, and some of the other ones. She's about that life, you know what I mean? And that's the thing that we really had in common. In terms of her efforts have been to get support for businesses to go into the food industry, businesses that serve our community. It's been a tough road, and she's done a lot of things. She got this Inclusion and Equity Commission created so that we could, because honestly, like I said, people don't really know that this has been an issue in Englewood. Just like people didn't know Outgale Gardens had an serious environmental problem until Ms. Hazel Johnson brought that to the forefront. That's some of the work that she's been doing, literally bringing these food access challenges to the forefront, because in her area the legislators they just don't know. They're so removed from those challenges.
They're in Springfield and Champaign
and different income brackets. They can order what they like and eat what they like, and I don't think it has occurred to many people that everybody is not in a position to access food, period. And so us having grown up in that environment, those are the types of things that we've sought to do. She's not the only one, thank goodness, but they got Illinois Eats initiative. They have, that's coming out of the Department of Human Services. They have some other, all different types of funds coming down the pipeline to try to support people to grow food and also to provide access to that food to people who previously didn't have it. Now the implementation is a beast, and that's where I am right now. I think we've all sat back long enough and said, hey, okay, we've done this, and we've done that, but we want more impact. And so now what do we have to do to see more impact on the ground?
Yeah, that's what time it is.
It's just all day, every day. We never stop thinking about it.
Yeah.
I'm in the advocacy group, and in fact, I'm the lead in this advocacy group. Somebody pops on the line and goes, this is the food justice, the Black Food Justice League. I'm like, that is so hilarious. I shall hope we can summon the power, that we need to push us forward. Black Justice.
Could you say more about some of the other organizations you work with in Englewood with the food? You said Grow Greater Englewood. I know you've talked about them and anyone else who.
Yeah, oh man, there's so many. Dr. Kweli Kwaza, not just Englewood, Dr. Kweli Kwaza is the leader of the Victory Garden movement. And if I'm not mistaken...
That's Malika's husband.
Yeah.
Queenie.
Yes. They have a huge garden initiative going on. If I'm not mistaken, they have at least 50 gardeners working with them.
Wow, I didn't know it was that much.
Yeah. This man. Hey, look, I'm not the only one.
Yeah, people out here working.
I've been in spaces where you wouldn't believe people are talking about seeds and what they're growing in their backyard. People that you just would not expect to even be talking about that. You just can't underestimate people. I think we've all gotten a memo. So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But Dr. Kwaza, man, there's so many people. I can't even think of everybody. Obviously, the Pembroke connection, still building with that. I recently reconnected with Reverend Al Sampson, who's been a long time. This man has been, I maybe just started in the 90s. He was in the 70s saying we should be concerned about. He's literally never strayed from the course of that. And he's had some successes and some setbacks. He's in his 80s. He has a lot of resources at his fingertips, and I've been working with him and hopefully learning how to formulate some of those resources into some impactful moves. Who else? Man, Kasabez, I don't know. Maybe some more come up while we talking, but
and maybe even more importantly for our listeners, for our viewers, is anybody in Englewood, any little girls growing seeds in their living room, any boys thinking about how can I start a garden, how can I start learning farming, are there any particular places they can reach out to?
Oh, definitely. I think Kenya Sample is doing workshops at the Garfield Conservatory. And Kenya and Julian Sample, they're longtime proponents of homes. Serious gardener and home growing. Who else? They should reach out to, and this is someone I have not worked with, but I know for a fact that she does training. Erica Allen, she does training, so you can have that hands-on thing going on with her.
Growing Power.
Yes. Yes. Who else? Okay, so you got them. Of course, Dr. Kwaza and his wife. Who else would I reach out to? Black folks. Yeah, Growing Home, Growing Greater Englewood, they're there. These are the groups that I'm naming that kind of have more African leadership. There are other groups, obviously, and especially you get into the cannabis thing if you have interest in that. There's quite a few resources out here, trainings and stuff like that. I don't know how you guys have people contact you, but if they contact me, then I'm sure I can put them in touch with a resource for the type of training that they want to have, and somebody local that's doing it.
We'll make sure to put your contact, whatever contact you want to put, we'll put it in the description.
Yeah.
So people can get in touch with the mom of Englewood.
If you're enjoying this conversation, hit that like button and subscribe.
Yes, don't delay.
And what about your work? Could you say more about your work in Ghana with the food co-op you were talking about? How
that started was we co-sponsored one of the first hemp and cannabis industry conferences in Ghana back in 2020 or 2019. The years mix up. So what happened with that is, of course, you're talking about a huge industry, but I'm going to say I like the cooperative structure. I like the seriousness that they give it. We actually were able to sit down with one of the finance ministers who's over cooperatives. They have a whole thing going on with co-ops. I don't feel that they're joking about the co-op situation at all. And I absolutely love the structure. I love the support that the government gives co-ops. It's like, if you want to start a business and you want to make sure that things are going on the up and up, that's a great structure for that country. So,
could you talk about what that structure is?
Basically, it's co-op. It's literally, so one of the co-ops, for example,
for someone who doesn't even know anything about co-op.
Basically it's cooperative. It's just what you would imagine. Your mind. Share resources, putting our monies together so that you can buy equipment, facilities, bring certain types of training, but it is regulated so that you have somebody from the finance ministry literally making sure that everybody's money going where it's supposed to go, when it's supposed to go, and making sure you're actually a cooperative, not a person that's being bought by someone from Netherlands or China and just being told do this, do that on the behalf of people of China and Netherlands. Do you understand? Because sometimes in a regular business, when it's especially dealing with natural resources, people do this all the time. Foreigners come to Africa and make these shiesty, shady partnerships with people, and they're basically extracting resources that the people who are there get absolutely no benefit or even a negative benefit from. So the cooperative structure is more regulated. So that's why I like it, because it's just more checks and balances in play. And so, for example, one of the co-ops that I work with had over 700 members, right? Wow. So they're putting their time, money, and goals together, literally, and they can do things like, we want to build a factory, and go in their own co-op account and build it. And that's what we did. Like, we literally did that. Wow. If they didn't have that structure and that the discipline to have all of that part organized, then I couldn't have came in and did my part, which was simply, we talked about added value and food preservation. And I showed them some of the things that they could be doing on their farms with low capital, low tech, that could lead to increased revenue and added value for their farming business. And once I did that part, it's Africa. They took the ball and ran with it. All kinds of stuff started coming out there. It's not like here. Here we have so many psychological factors that we can't just take the rock and just run with it. We gotta be like, wait a minute, I don't know. Somebody, you mean tell me we can do this, this, and this? Yes, you can. Let's do it. I'm like, ooh. So we created a factory with one of the co-ops where they have almost 100-ton drying dehydration capacity. We built the machines with a machinist in Ghana. What we couldn't build, we ordered it from China. But it was done. It's done. It's processing. Wow. They're processing as we speak. And if they was on a capitalist bent and ran that factory 24/7, do the math. It was the cooperative structure just gives you additional support to me and access, and they're very serious about what they're doing. I just really cannot I don't know. I was very inspired, and as I tell my peers here, I can't unsee it. I can't unsee black folks being responsible for their food. I'm in Chicago and I still can't unsee it. I still see us being responsible. I know we can do it because I've seen it done. I can't go backwards. So I had another co-op, just to show you the challenges that they're having over there. It was a huge co-op, but the leadership is being challenged on the ground by Big Pharma and Big Food. And so they decided to go in a different direction and turn into a herbal and a health cooperative, which I think is still amazing. And so I'm looking to bring some of their products over here. And they're looking forward. They're not just thinking about right now. They're like, look, some of these crops are sustainable and some are not. Some we can cultivate, some we cannot. And we need to know which is which and plan for how we're handling these different herbs. They on top of it.
Yeah.
I love it.
So what you're saying is they ran into some challenges and then they adapted and changed their model to be successful still?
And to address a more fundamental issue. It would seem like you would be discouraged, but no, it's not. It's discouraging when you, man, like my man told me one day, he said, the farmers here are like the walking dead. I almost slid out my chair. That hurts. That's a bitter pill. But this is what he's doing with the bitter pill, yeah.
And what part of Ghana are you in?
Accra.
Okay.
I'm in Accra, but these farmers are all over Ghana.
Wow, I think we had mentioned briefly an education piece. How do you see us being able to raise awareness here in Chicago and places like Chicago about the problems that we have surrounding food and health and the related factors and bringing some solutions?
That's the number one question, ain't it? Honestly, since we haven't done it before, it's all experimental until it works. But definitely, I think we need to be out here making a case for good food. We need to be making a case for the fact that we deserve access to good food. We need to be making a case that we're responsible for making sure that we have access to good food. And that any obstacles we face in the process of doing that, we should face them. Because it's our right and our responsibility to do that. So with that being said, we have a number of like media, initiatives that we're engaging in around food. We have a club that's literally that started in Englewood because of some of the elders were just emphatic that you guys are passionate about this, but we don't know this area. And we had to come full circle with that conversation to let them remember back. Remember when you were 40, 50 years ago, what were you eating? You wasn't eating this. You see what I'm saying? So the club that we have started is one of those types of initiatives where we're breaking down these seemingly complicated concepts around food and food access and make it accessible to just regular neighborhood people. So we're doing that through film, through books, through travel experiences. We'll be visiting a cannabis farm, probably a winery. We want to connect with the actual people who are actually growing and producing things. And it's for the elders, it's a reconnection. It's like they forgot or something.
What club is this?
It's Wine and Words, aka Booze and Books. But it's a food and literary club.
Here in Chicago?
Yeah.
How do people
contact me?
All right.
Yeah. So but basically it's an experiential type of club.
So that one's called elders.
It's multi-generational.
Okay.
It's everybody from 75 to 30 right now.
Okay.
It's a mix-up. Yeah. But the elders are the ones who approached me and said, look, these meetings and all this stuff y'all talking about, it sounds like gibberish to us. Can we do something different so that we can access the knowledge in a way that we can understand it?
Nice.
And so that's one of the initiatives that we started.
My mom loves to read.
I'm going to send her an invitation.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. And then too, the beer piece. Noe is putting together a lot of food content. Myself, Vanessa, my friend has a healing resort that she's developing down in Pembroke, 5 acres. And we started filming last year. We plant this and we're doing that, but it's all part of the process of creating this narrative of our involvement with the land and with the food. So it's a whole multi-level. We can't just come at it from one direction because we are really in a pickle.
We're not being attacked, but in one direction, so we gotta.
No, it's everything.
We have a huge initiative coming up again with the Black farmers on April 3rd. We're gonna be down in Springfield again. If I had it my way, we'd be down there all week playing golf, going to wineries and different farms and stuff. But so far, that's going to be available on a limited basis, but
I'm reserving my spot right now.
Yeah, I saw your little
we
eyebrow
gotta,
twitch.
we gotta make this real. We gotta make this real. To me, that's my goal, is to make this real and to give people that experience with the land, on the land, and what's happening on there. We've done it. We've been down there to farms with kids from Woodlawn or Englewood or wherever, and we know what that experience does and how it enhances them, it changes them. And so that's another initiative that we have going on. So we'll be going down on April 3rd. I want everybody to come. I want everybody to come and just be listening and learning and seeing what's going on. I saw some things down in Springfield that really actually inspired me. I'm almost shy to admit it, but it did, yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. It's inspiring just hearing you talk about it, let alone being there.
I'm so grateful for that.
and we gotta put our heads together to really put that out there in different media campaigns, in different ways, to our young people to understand that the goal should be rural living. That's the thing. In city life, we don't think that the goal should be rural living. That's why everybody's leaving behind.
Yeah.
But we got to understand that's where our survival is. That's where our good health is. That's where ensuring that we can be healthy when we want to be healthy. We're not dependent on anybody else to be healthy. We're not dependent on anybody else to be successful. And even that's one of the key factors in wanting to live healthy. But seemingly, even with healthy products, you still age faster because city life is just stressful and sucking the life out of us.
Man.
And it's the difference between learning how to live as a producer versus just being a consumer and consuming up whatever the system is giving us.
Man, get in touch. You go, man, me and Kasabez, we run down to Pembroke every chance we get.
I know, he's always telling me.
Because you feel better, period. Just imagine, you already know, leaving here, going to Africa, you really feel better. So it's an opportunity. I think that more people should just make a decision, like today, that I'm going to do something to become more responsible for what I'm eating and what I'm serving my family. If you start there, then you're going to be going in the direction that you're going to go in.
We're going to see you in Pembroke.
We're going to see you somewhere at a farmer's market. Because, hey, look, man, all the excuses are out the window. We down to the wire. We talking about a country where 60% of the children are dealing with metabolic disorder. 80, almost 90% of the adults. And I'm talking about, people will look at you and say, oh, you're overweight, and don't let that be the only determining factor. I said 80%. I said 60%. That is a problem. And it's something that we can do something about. And I just like to err on the side of taking more responsibility.
Definitely.
And I know we do have some obstacles, but I don't see any of them being insurmountable.
Yeah, I like to say, only way we know that we doomed is if we don't try to save ourselves.
Right.
You know? Otherwise, if we feel like, okay, this probably a 95% chance we're doomed, like 5%.
Right. You have nothing to lose.
Right. You 100% doomed if you don't try. If you just be like, we're doomed.
Nah. And plus, look, we came here for a reason. And you gotta, to me, what I think about is the young people. They're looking at us and they're like, this is the best you can do. And I'm challenged to meet that challenge. I want it to be said that I put my best foot forward. For me, that's a personal challenge.
Definitely.
Absolutely. We all have that challenge, you know?
Yeah. And some people are like, Cicely, that's too complicated. And stop, man. This is good food, man. That's all we're talking about right now.
That's all we're talking about.
We're not talking about rocket science. If it was rocket science, I wouldn't understand it because I don't know anything about that. Nah, let's not make it that. Let's make it real simple. Think about, what's the best thing that I can eat today? What's the best thing I can access for my family? What can I do that's going to help my children feel better? I remember Dr. Nellums told me one day, he said, Mom, she's not going to behave well because she doesn't feel well. Duh. What are you thinking? What do you think? You think she's not going to have behavior problems if she doesn't feel good? She doesn't feel good. And a lot of times we're talking about the youth and what they're doing in their behavior. But I just said at 7 o'clock in the morning, they're eating hot flamers and drinking a blue juice. And what do you expect from the day after that? So for me, it's a no-brainer. I don't know what else to say. Hey, and then on top of that, what I did learn in working with the 6th District office, because Rep. Harper has all these different initiatives going on. She got the small business thing. She got the education thing. She got this holistic advisory committee system. And that's great. But food is the driver of all those other systems. Because think about it. When you engage the food, then you engage production. And then you engage industry. Now you're talking about a community. When you engage that level, now you're talking about institutions. Now you're talking about defense and offense. We ain't got to that part yet. The reason why the economics in a small business is off is where's the business at? The business is food. The business is textiles. The business is this tea or this drink that is in our cup. So let's engage with the base and grow from there. Didn't Black Thought say the things fall apart when the center is too weak to hold? And so sometimes we put the cart before the horse. We don't have to do that. We don't have community yet. We don't have industry yet. We don't have institutions yet. We can up and build an institution today, but can we sustain it? Can we defend it? We've done it. We know that we cannot because you know what I'm saying? Where are they now? So with that experience, it brings me closer to the source, which is the soil, which is the food, which is the water.
Definitely.
And
and that's the thing though, is that as a consumer, you get tricked into looking beyond the base because you're like, I just want the fancy stuff. But you don't understand, other people have this fancy stuff to sell to you because they started from a base and grew everything up. They're now in charge of the resources that create the fancy stuff. You just go buying the fancy stuff, but you're in charge of nothing. So that education piece is so important, really, to really start a cultural revolution around our youth being excited to, okay, let's get under the base. Because like you're saying, food, preparation of food, industry, then even healing, all of that comes out of the earth that everybody trying to look past.
We stepping on the soil and we forget that really the condition that we find our food in is a reflection of the soil, and so are we. And so as the are sick and they're attacked by industrial chemicals, so are we. And the same results have come from those attacks. Plants are going through a lot of unnecessary death and drama right now too. A lack of nutrients, things that look a certain way but they're a shell. And that's like how we are as people. We are definitely a reflection of the soil, and the same challenge that the soil is facing right now, so are we. So when you engage the process of regeneration and building soil, making compost and all these other things, you are building your own self. So
message
so serious, man. Yeah.
It's been a pleasure, sis, and we could keep you here all night, but I'd rather invite you back.
I'd love to come back.
We can,
maybe we can do some samples and stuff.
And maybe we can get into some history of Chicago. I heard you mention that. We can talk about why Chicago is what it is.
Oh man,
there's a lot to say about that.
Man, a lot. Definitely bringing some wine samples if I got
all right. We'll be sipping and savoring.
Yeah, I love it.
Yes, we will put all of those, as many links as we can fit before we run out of letter spaces in the description, so that our listeners can follow up with a lot of those organizations and opportunities and resources that Sister Cicely is pointing out. But it was a pleasure.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
All right, appreciate you too. Thanks for coming.
That's a phenomenal sister. You meet people around the community that are putting in so much work and have consistently put in so much work just for the care of their families, their communities, and it's astounding. We often underestimate how much we can do over a period of time, and when we're consistent doing stuff, we can get a lot done. So it was an inspiring conversation.
Yeah, but like we've been thinking about and talking about is how do we improve on that? Whatever we've been doing, if it's been 20 years, 30 years, 5 years, 10 years, how do we improve on that? We can't just take credit for, I did this, I did that. We're not doing it for accolades, we're doing it for results. Whatever results we think we've been getting, how do we continue to make that better?
Definitely.
I remember I was talking to a brother who owned this African clothing shop, and he was a tailor and everything, but I used to stop by his shop and we would chat from time to time because he stayed by my mom's house, and I could just stop in on my way to the bus or whatever. And he one time he was saying that if you don't get to grow your own food, you don't get to take care of whatever you need to do for your survival, you're not a free man. And that always stuck with me, like, wow, we really not free, because the person who's providing everything for you, if you look at now, we keep talking about inflation. A loaf of bread might have been $2, now it's $4. If it was $4, now it's $6. Eggs went up over $10 just for a carton of eggs, a dozen of eggs. And if you still want eggs, then you're gonna have to pay that $10. And if you don't have the $10, then you're just not eating eggs. And if somehow you felt like you needed eggs, sorry for you.
Yeah. And that's the other important topic that's the other important point that came out of the conversation with the sister, because a lot of people don't understand the value of rural living and the value of living from the land and having some autonomy over the land, because nowadays the way the society is structured, and especially through the media, everything's about how much material wealth you have versus how much you don't. But you can see just a huge sector of society given a lot more material wealth, while all of the things they subsist on, they don't have any power over. They're still fully dependent on the system. Whole Foods shuts down, they will go nuts.
Yeah.
And recently, or you also have seen in the news where people maybe retire from professional sports. I've seen one or two. I can't say it happens often, but I remember seeing, I think, a football player who retired and then went into farming, and people watching maybe just fully taking in whatever the system's idea of success is would be like, why would you leave that to then go work hard as a farmer? Like, not understanding that's where real wealth is. And that being where real wealth is, like we were talking about in the conversation, we have to start educating our children that way again, because not only is that where real wealth is, that where real autonomy is, that where real independence comes from, if we want to talk about independence from a system, but that's also where healthy living comes from. That's also where living according to the rhythms of nature that are more in line with how our body needs to function come from, because we really don't get how much just the stresses of modern living and modern city living take a toll on our bodies. Like, can you imagine, I was saying this the other day to somebody, can you imagine growing up in a place where you wake up and all you hear is sounds of nature, like birds chirping, wind blowing? You don't hear any ambulances, you don't hear any gunshots, you don't hear any denatured sounds, radio waves, television, you don't hear any of that. It's just nature, and how much slower life moves when you get to live in that kind of environment. That effect that has on your body, like, we don't understand how stressed and tense our body gets just having to live under so many different energetic currents coming from so many different degenerate or denatured sources.
Yeah, right now only sound I'm hearing is the furnace blowing and the cars passing on Lakeshore Drive, and the light I'm seeing is from these old artificial lights that we have to use so you can see our beautiful faces on the screen.
Even though we're right next to the lake. Like, and just imagine,
we have a big highway.
Just imagine if all we were listening to was the natural rhythm of the waves crashing, And then what that will do to even our heartbeats, what that will do to even our how our bodies react to that. But no, we don't get to hear that.
Master Nabu was telling us or teaching us, and by the way, we also call him the Maakmaah, which means truth teller, truth like we've been talking about since the beginning of the episode. He was telling us there's a difference between work and slavery. What we do here in the United States doesn't leave us room to even invest in ourselves. We work pretty much every day. If it's not every day, it's every week. And we don't get a chance to pick up and take a few weeks off. You might get at most 2 weeks vacation. I don't think even a lot of people are getting that nowadays.
Yeah, no.
And 2 weeks vacation doesn't leave you a lot of time. When we do our pilgrimage to Africa, it's 3 weeks minimum is the trip, and you have to sacrifice a whole week out of your pay schedule or take your sick days or whatever like that just to get that 3 weeks. And 3 weeks is like nothing for an experience like that, let alone if you want to live somewhere. But you end up just accumulating material, accumulating money that you end up having to spend and give it right back to the people who, not the same people you're working for, but the same system that you're working for. And then
to try to get your health, to try to survive enough long enough to benefit from whatever money you were trying to make. Just to survive
and maybe like try to enjoy life, which is like, you know, it's not really creating anything for yourself. If you living on land, then the work that you do, it's for you. You're working for yourself.
Right.
Whatever effort that you're making, you're investing it in yourself, and then you have time for not only just material pursuits. Mm-hmm. You have time for spiritual pursuits, because the thing that we don't really get to talk about most of the time is that even the land itself, the earth itself is alive. The earth itself is a living entity, and on the earth itself, there's many other entities that are spiritual in nature, that are kind of like the governing entities over different parts of the world, you know, rivers, forests, and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, people always talk about how, these people, they're so savage, primitive, or whatever. They're worshiping mountains and rocks, and they're praying to the trees and things like that. No, it's because there's really actual spirits.
Well, you really look at Lake Michigan, the size of Lake Michigan, the power of how much that amount of water will contain, and it naturally came about, and say that there's not power in that, that there's not magic in that. It's just we get so used to just following along with whatever the common culture or the textbook or the scientist says, but we don't really practically think about it.
You might recognize the physical power or the physical force that the lake is. That we know that when you're close to the lake, it even changes the temperature, it changes the weather that you're experiencing compared to just a few miles away from it. But we don't look at that as the fact that of the lake itself being an entity, a spirit,
well, of course,
or consciousness.
I was trying to walk people there.
Yeah.
I was trying to walk people there.
Yeah. We got to get there slowly, but it's something to think about, because we talk about the land, but we don't really talk about how to connect with the land and really be part of nature. If we talk about nature, it's not just a happenstance. Mm-hmm. It's something that has been created. Mm-hmm. And if it's been created, then that means it's in divine order. Mm-hmm. And if it's in divine order, and we as humans are the only ones thinking that we're separate from the divine order, what does that make us really?
It makes us bad house guests. It makes us terrorists to the place we live.
Parasites.
It makes us parasites. Because you imagine, you come in, you invite a guest into your home, you have an order on how things function in your home, and that guest goes ignoring, neglecting everything. Puts their feet up where they want to put them up, eats where they want to eat, uses the bathroom where they want to use the bathroom. They don't care. They don't check your rules. They don't check what the order was that existed before they came in. It's just, hey, for them, they're either going to make this place beautiful and valuable, because before they came, it wasn't. Now, imagine us doing that on earth as human beings. We think we're the only entities here. We think we're the only ones that need respect. We think we the ones to dictate the only order, the only law that needs to be followed. And we don't think about, hey, this place, we know this place. has been sustaining life long before us, sustains life even in our absence, sustains life even when we don't know about it. But we're not going to give any consideration to making sure we can not only respect that, but even learn how to appeal to that, learn how to gather the support from that, and do it every time we move from zone to zone.
Yeah, I don't know if house guest is even the word, because a house guest implies that you just came from somewhere, then that's somewhere you can go back to. We human beings, we don't have some other place other than the earth that we have that we can just go and live. This is our home.
I said it for a reason, because we do, but people don't want to go back there. So that's the thing, because we came from someplace and we will all go back, but we don't go back except for through death. It's only death that we have to go back to. So that's why I said house guest. If people didn't catch it,
too deep for the
that's why you don't give me. That's why you don't get me talking about these things.
Be that as it may, while we're in this life, we happen to be like children who are created here, and we only have this place to live, and the only place we have to live while we're on earth is in this body that we have, and the body only functions the way it functions. It doesn't function any other way. The way that our body responds to what we put in it, or even the experiences that we have on a day-to-day basis. But let's just get back to talking about food, because that's where we started off at. Whatever we put in the body, the body responds to it based on what it is. You can't just feel, okay, I want it to taste like how I want it to taste, I want it to feel like how I want it to feel in my mouth, and think that you're not also changing the way your body's going to react to it. A lot of people out here sick because the only thing we think about when we're eating is how it tastes. We're not thinking about how does it react in our body.
How does it feed us? That's why it's called feeding us. Feeding our energies. We just think about how it feels on our tongue, but there's a big difference between feel and feed. It's not just the last letter. So we said a lot in the episode, the sister said a lot in the episode about making sure to take responsibility for the food you eat, for the quality of food you eat, for the production of the food you eat. But we didn't say too much about foods we eat, and beyond just make sure it's natural. But even in the episode, we talked about that being just the first step. Because then having to learn how to cook, how to make healthy recipes, and how to even go and invest time to learn in traditions, age-old traditions, about what recipes have been kept and preserved because they feed our body better than just eating the food straight from the earth. And that's the thing that gets lost on a lot of the dietary fads that are coming out nowadays. Everybody looking for something new that they could sell, that they could commodify, that they could write about in the marketplace. Is that now even you have this idea that human beings aren't even engineered to eat meat and eat cooked foods and all of this new ideas, when really you look in every indigenous culture around the world and they
all cook their food.
They have very they have age-old processes and techniques of cooking their food, and meat is there and everything.
And they cook it, they don't eat it. It's like you don't see a raw food diet anywhere on earth in an indigenous culture anywhere. Right. The only indigenous culture maybe eats raw food is cave Neanderthals, maybe, I don't know.
What I even found out, and then after reading those books, I came up in the marketplace like everybody else, and after reading those books, but then going and talking to indigenous people and studying with indigenous people, they will tell you, after they laugh at the question, they'll be like, no, the only time we feed people just raw foods is if we're getting them ready for warfare. Because that's how you make somebody more animalistic. That's how you bring the animal out in them. Which goes to show that all of the cultures around the planet learned that, a human being wants to refine ourselves and evolve towards divine qualities, be more than the animals. Maybe that's why we all cook. And then you're busy here thinking you're discovering something, now taking yourself right back to the level of the animal.
I'm civilizing myself.
It all just comes to us having the humility to be like, you know what? Maybe we don't know better than all of these people who've been living on this planet for so many generations before us, even living when the system they lived under wasn't trying to destroy them and just profit off of them and make sure that they don't know how to live well, because that would take more money away from them.
Message.
Facts. Okay, so please, everybody, really have some humility and give some credit to looking into the traditions, human traditions that are found all around the planet. You will see in most indigenous cuisines, there's what you call staples, and even a lot of times those staples are even fermented. Mm-hmm. You have the modern tongue taste that and they're like, oh, how do they eat this? Why? Mm-hmm. In where we live in Burkina Faso, you can have different kind of mashes that are fermented corn, fermented millet, mixture. And that fermentation will have a little sour in it, but that's because of what it does to the organs. Mm-hmm. And then with that, now you eat in a soup or a sauce that's vegetable based and might have a little bit of meat in it.
It's so well processed, you don't even have to chew it. You just with the sauce. When
we say so well processed, we mean so well prepared into cooking. We don't mean so well processed with all kinds of preservatives and all kinds of long words that you can't read.
Naturally processed, yes.
Yeah,
naturally processed through growing, harvesting, drying, maybe powdering. All of it is a natural process, and then obviously cooking is a natural process. You don't add a whole bunch of artificial stuff in there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, even meat, we say we eat meat, but the thing about it is you don't, like here in the US, you have a meal and the meat is like half of the food. Mm-hmm. You know, you don't eat meat as a staple. You eat meat as like a portion of. But most of the places where we go in Africa, if you're just getting, even if it's a restaurant, you're just ordering like a plate of food, they'll give you a piece of meat maybe like this, and then the rest of your food is just the starch and the sauce, the vegetable aspect and the sauce.
And it's not like you don't meet. I meet people in indigenous places, they might love meat too. Some people love meat. Mm-hmm. But when you're young and you love meat, you can eat a lot of meat, the body won't feel it. Mm. Once you hit 30s, 40s, you eat a lot of meat, your body feels it. And then you realize, oh, this can't be the main part of the diet. Mm. This can't be my main meal. No. And even if I love it so much where I'm still gonna make it my main meal, then you better have the knowledge of how I cleanse it out of the body before my body has to make me pay for it. And that's the thing, that in the oldest traditions that you can find on the continent, on our motherland, that are given a kind of a food guide that really got weaved into the customs of all over the continent and how they eat. It says that really meat should be seen as an emergency food, because when it gets put into your system in excess, its waste will start to poison the blood and poison the organs. And once you hit 30 or 40 years of age and your digestive system slows down, you feel that. Once you hit that point, you feel it. Now, you don't have the energy that you used to have after you eat it. It even brings a soreness, brings a lethargy to your body where you see, oh, my body can't handle this like it used to be able to handle that. But think about that. Here in the big cities in the West, we will eat meat. The majority of the meal will be meat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Mm. All 3 meals of the day. Right. And maybe even for snacks. Maybe for snacks we eat beef jerky and pepperoni sticks and processed meat.
Slim Jims.
All of that. It's really wise to look into what our ancestral cultures, the indigenous cultures on the planet, those we tend to look down upon and say they live in third world countries, have preserved, and what they've learned from those that came before them. Because we have to understand, in the modern cities, in places like America, in places like UK, in places that have been colonized, civilized, developed, those places developed out of giving respect and humility to the old cultures that came before them. Whatever that wisdom that those old cultures had stored and built up, the lack of humility of these new modern places said, you know what, we better than that. We know how to live life better than that. We know how to do things better than that, and they turned away from it. And that's why we all are suffering now. Just like the sister was talking about, 60% of children have metabolic issues. 80 to 90% of adults. That's not natural. That's not normal. We built for this planet. This is the only planet we built for.
Right.
How can we be suffering like that unless we just gave up on what works?
And health is wealth. So those talking about the United States as the healthiest, the wealthiest country in the world, if we're measuring that based on health standards, I have to say not at all.
Please, to our listeners, it's been a great episode. And we hope that you gain from it, and we hope that you understand that planting in our ancient cultures will bring you a much better harvest than one that actually feeds the body, feeds the spirit, than planting in these kind of new ideas that are just trying to sell a quick buck that will just flare out and phase out just as fast as they can.
Just like planting in vacant lots and in between asphalt and concrete. We do have some articles, I believe, that could point more to these dietary issues and things of that nature that we can put in the description. Make sure to read the description, y'all. There's so much in the description.
Every time, man. It's just getting more and more as the episodes go. We put more and more in the description, so don't overlook the description.
Thanks again for tuning in. If you watched this whole episode, hats off to y'all. And
share it with a friend.
Share it with a friend.
And we all know people that are suffering under bad diets. We all know people that are suffering in poor health. Share it with a friend.
Yeah, share it to your Facebook or your Twitter or whatever. And
hit the like and subscribe. You said that already, right?
Yeah, but we can never say it too many times because people still don't do it. Yeah, we look forward to seeing you on the next episode.
And comment.
Of Sunnyside.
And comment.
Please comment. Yeah, we want to hear your comments, questions, and even if you have a question for us, we'll make sure to answer it on the next episode. All right, y'all be good. Take care.
Life can be so sweet on the sunny side of the street.